are going to see about lecture number 6 of farm resources, coir pith, press mud, oil cakes, fly ash, biocompost, minerals, bone meal, biofertilizers, and traditional practices. Okay, the word itself of farm, it means the products which we are going to made within different premises of the farm. It means not in the farm but in different places. That products are going to be utilized and will be used as organic manures and nutrients in the field. Okay, that are called off farm organic resources. Of them, first one is about coir pith. What is meant by coir pith? Do you know from where this coir pith comes from? Yes, this coir pith is the product of coconut tree. Okay, this is about we are going to see that coir dust is a waste product of coir industry and could be used as organic amendment. If I see in India, annually produces about 280,000 metric tons of coir fiber. By weight, coir fibers accounts for about one third of the coconut pulp, and the other two third is the coir pith. Okay, by weight, if I see that coir fibers account for about one third of the coconut pulp. Okay, and the other two thirds is the coir pith. Coir pith is also known as coco peat or coir dust. This product of coir industry can be converted into organic manure using biotechnology, making ideal for gardening and horticulture. Okay, mostly this coco peat will be used in the nursery areas and will be used in horticulture and in gardening areas. A wide variety of coir pith products such as coir pith grow bag, coir pith bale, coir pith briquettes, and coir pith disc cocoa chips are ideal for your gardening and horticulture needs. Repeating again, this will be in the form of many types. Okay, of them coir pith grow bag, coir pith bale, coir pith briquettes, coir pith disc, and cocoa chips are ideal for your gardening and horticulture needs. Okay, the coir waste accumulates in large quantities near the coir industry units, and it can be converted into valuable organic manure by proper composting with the aid of the mushroom fungus Pleurotus sojarkaju. Okay, this coir pith can be used as in different forms. Of them, this coir waste will be accumulates in large quantities near the coir industry. Wherever this coir industry is present, there will be lots of waste accumulated there, and it can be converted into valuable organic manure with the help of some mushroom fungus Pleurotus sojarkaju. The composting reduces the volume of 42% besides narrowing the C/N ratio. It will reduce the C/N ratio. Once the compost is matured and potash mobilizing bacteria and phosphorus solubilizing bacteria at the rate of 400 ml per ton increase the availability of P2O5 and K2O within 20 days. Okay. Once the compost is going to be mature, at that time potash mobilizing bacteria and phosphorus solubilizing bacteria at the rate of 400 milliliter per ton increase the availability of potash and phosphorus within 20 days. It has been found to be good amendment for sodic soils and a moisture conserving material for rain-fed crops. How it going to be useful? It's been to be found that it good amendment for sodic soils and a moisture conserving material for rain-fed crops. The use of coir pith without composting is, however, not advisable. Okay, in the fresh form, it contains 8 to 12% soluble tannin related phenolics, which can inhibit microbial activity in the soil and cause immobilization of nitrogen. Here we are going to see about the special features of coir pith compost. It contains macronutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. It contains micronutrients, calcium, copper, and magnesium. It contains some natural enzymes, excellent water holding capacity, improve aeration, enhances strong heat root system, stimulates production of phytohormones. Ideal pH level is about 5.6 to 6.4. It acts as eco-friendly and helps farmers to help in gardening and horticulture crops. Okay, repeating again the points of what were the special features of coir pith compost. It contains macronutrients of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. It also contains micronutrients like calcium, copper, and magnesium. As this contains many of different types of enzymes, it will be helpful in water holding capacity, which increases the water retention also, and improves aeration, enhances strong heat root system, stimulates production of phytohormones. It requires maintains the pH level of 5.6 to 6.4, and it is very eco-friendly to the farmers. Not only this, let's see why this compost is coir pith is very important. If the soil is fertile and contain components like micro and macronutrients, many gardening problems can be occurred, okay, such that much attention must be paid to keeping it in good condition. The ideal vegetable garden soil is deep, friable, and well drained, and has high organic matter content. Proper soil preparation provides the basis for good seed germination and subsequent growth of garden crops. Careful use of various soil amendments can be improve the physical and biological conditions of soil, yes or not, and provide the best possible starting ground for your crops. Coir pith not only revitalizes your plants, it induces uniformly in growth by enhancing water retention and microbial activity. As I said now, coir pith contains high quality of nutrients that keep the soil healthy in a natural way. It acts as a top dressing that helps maintain moisture and reconditions the soil, so that whenever even water availability not there, this coir pith will help in holding the water and will be utilized in case of any drought or any lack of water. Coir pith enhances the nutrient carrying capacity of plants. Sustainable agriculture practices such as this creates a healthy perfect loop from table to earth. Pure and natural, this organic biodegradable matter is an economical and natural alternate for rock wool slabs, peat moss, and perlite. Here I am repeating this point. Pure and natural, this organic biodegradable matter is an economical and natural alternate for rock wool slabs and peat moss and perlite. This natural spongy coir industry byproduct is a perfect organic growing medium for fruits such as strawberry, vegetables such as pepper, cucumber, tomato, and flowers such as gerbera, gladioli, lily, anthurium, and rose can be most beneficial with this coir pith. Okay, this is a small information about coir pith. I hope you have understood. Next, moving to press mud. What is meant by press mud? From where it has been come from. Okay, from where this byproduct will be come from. Do you know anything about this press mud? Yes, the organic byproduct from sugar mills is called press mud. Compost, which is utilized to provide nutrient rich, high quality organic matter when it is applied to the soil as manure, results in better sustainable yield. If you see the press mud nature, press mud is soft, spongy, amorphous, and dark brown white material containing nitrogen, cellulose, lignin, protein, sugar, fiber, and coagulated colloids, including cane wax, alubuminoids, inorganic salts, and soil particles, and all other carbon containing available in the final product, which is suitable for biofuel and fertilizer production, agronomic productivity. Okay, this contains various types of minerals and proteins contained in this press mud, which will be helpful in fixing the soil particles and the other carbon containing available in the final product, which is suitable for biofuel, fertilizer and production and agronomic productivity. You're going to increase the agronomic productivity. If you see this, India is the second largest producer of sugar in the world with a share of 17% in world production of 32.25 million tons. At present, in the country, annual byproduct production about 8 million tons in the form of press mud is recorded. Press mud, byproduct of sugarcane industry, has a great potential when mixed into soils, agricultural soils as a organic fertilizer, with many benefits that can be improve soil health and sustainable agriculture. Okay, India is the second largest producer of sugar, and so that there will be more amount of waste. That waste also can be utilized as press mud. At present in the country, annual byproduct production about 8 million tons in the form of press mud is recorded. How much? 8 million tons in the form of press mud has been stored. Press mud, byproduct of sugarcane industry, has a great potential when mixed into soils, agriculture soils as organic fertilizer, with many benefits that can improve soil health and sustainable agronomic productivity or agriculture productivity. Okay, how this will be helpful in changing the physical properties and chemicals and biological properties. Okay, before going into that, let's see the nutrient composition of press mud. As I haven't mentioned here, please note down the points. It contains about organic compound of 50 gram of press mud. Okay, out of 100 gram of press mud, the organic compound is about 50 gram, and the calcium is about 11 gram, and phosphorus is about 2 to 3 gram, potassium is about 1 to 2 gram, nitrogen is about 1.5 to 2.5, and magnesium 1, sulfur 0.3, and cellulose 11.4, hemicellulose 10, and lignin 9.3, protein 15.3, and wax 8.4. Repeating again about the nutrient composition of press mud, it contains about organic compound about 50. Out of 100 gram of press mud, organic compound will be of 50, and calcium is about 11 gram, and phosphorus is about 2 to 3, potassium is about 1 to 2, nitrogen is about 1.5 to 2.5, magnesium is about 1, sulfur is about 0.3, cellulose 11.4, hemicellulose 10, lignin 9.3, protein 13.3, and wax is about 0.4. This was about nutrient composition of press mud. If we see the microbial composition, press mud is rich in beneficial microbes which aid in mineralization of plant nutrients in the soil, which rectifies the micronutrient deficiency of the soil and amenable to the plant roots. How it will be beneficial? It aids in mineralization of plant nutrients in the soil, which rectifies the micronutrient deficiency of the soil and amenable to the plant roots. This contains total bacterial count of 3.6 into 10 power 2, and the fungal count is about 0.5 into 10 power 5, and the actinomycete count is about 2.52 into 10 power 5. Okay, this is about microbial composition. And now we are going to see the effect of press mud on soil properties. The first one is about physical properties. It is regular addition maintains tilth, fertility and productivity of agriculture soils. How it maintains? It maintains tilth, fertility and productivity of agriculture soils. It maintains aggregate stability. Favorable effects on fundamental soil properties such as texture, structure, water holding capacity, infiltration, etc. will be helpful and modified with this application of press mud. When added to the field, it increased the cane yield, improved the juice quality, and enhanced ammonifying power of soils. What it will be made? When the press mud is added to the field, it increased the cane yield, improved the juice quality, and enhanced ammonifying power of soils. Next, moving to chemical properties. When it is applied to alkaline soils, it maintains pH 8.5 and it reduces the pH as press mud is acidic in nature. Okay, whenever there is high alkaline content in the soil, it can be reduced the pH as press mud is acidic in nature. It is likely to improve the macronutrient distribution and enhance beneficial microbial activities within the soil system. Okay, SOM encourages granulation, soil organic matter. It encourages granulation, increases cation exchange capacity and absorbing power of soils up to 90% with producing cations such as calcium, magnesium and potassium. So far we have covered physical and chemical properties of this press mud and how this press mud will be helpful in biological properties, how it will increase this. It enhances, as I haven't mentioned these points, please listen carefully and take your points here. It enhances building up of soil carbon and nitrogen content in soil. It increases the bacterial, fungal and actinomyces population in soil and enhances their activity of decomposition. If we apply this press mud to the soil, then the number of bacteria and fungal and actinomyces are going to be increased and enhances their activity of decomposition, which helps to the soil to develop in different various forms. Okay, it also increases the nutrient content of the soil. The important agent that affects carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus and sulfur cycles and other nutrients in terrestrial ecosystem. This press mud will be helpful in maintaining the carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus and sulfur cycles in the atmosphere to maintain in this terrestrial ecosystem. Not only these biological properties, but press mud also can be act as carbon sequester. Students, where we have listened this carbon sequester in organic carbon class, okay, to regain that carbon, so carbon sequestration, you can say that press mud will be act as carbon sequester. After the application of press mud, agriculture practices can help to increase the rate of soil carbon sequestration is 89.41% in soil carbon levels. It can be increased to 89.41% in soil carbon levels. Okay. Application of press mud as an organic manure shows of about 50% increase in organic carbon after first application, as level of initial organic carbon in soil is very low. For example, 0.66%, and it has more potential to store more carbon. Okay. Application of, repeating the same point again, application of press mud as an organic manure shows about 150%. I'm sorry, before I have said about 50%, it is about 150% increase in organic carbon after first application, as level of initial organic carbon in soil is very low. Whenever the carbon level is very low, then if we apply this press mud to the soil, it will increase the soil carbon in that level. The level of soil carbon will be increased of about 0.66% and it has more potential to store more carbon. Okay, it is about press mud. Okay. So prismid also helpful in many ways to the soil in organic form. Next, moving to oil cakes. What are oil cakes? Any idea about this? What is this oil cake? Yes, the waste of the oil seeds that when after it has been used completely, when the oil has been extracted, the residue or the waste which has been present will be called as oil cakes. Okay, many oil cakes such as the castor, neem, maduka, karanja, linseed, rapeseed, and cotton seed, which are non-edible oil cakes, may serve as useful organic manure as these contain high amounts of plant nutrients. See here, castor is an oil seed, neem is an oil seed, okay. Maduka, karanja, linseed, rapeseed, and cotton seed, which are non-edible oil cakes, may serve as useful organic manure as these contain high amounts of plant nutrients. Most of the non-edible oil cakes are valued much for their alkaloid content, which inhibit the nitrification process in soils. How this is going to be useful? It starts the nitrification process in the soils. Neem cake contains the alkaloids nimbin and nimbicidin, which effectively inhibit the nitrification process. This neem cake will helpful and contains alkaloids which are about nimbin, nimbicidin, which effectively inhibit the nitrification process. Here we have seen about the neem. Similarly, caranjin, Pongamia pinnata, and Maduka batyracea is a potent nitrification inhibitor equal in efficiency to nitropyrin in retarding the nitrification process of ammonical nitrogen and increases the yield, nitrogen uptake, and grain protein content of rice. Okay, this caranjin will be useful to integrate the nitrification process of ammonical nitrogen and increasing the yield. Okay, nitrogen uptake and grain protein content of rice also will be increased this caranjin oil cake. Maduka cake has been successfully used in coastal saline soils for cultivation of rice. Where it was going to be used? Maduka cake has been successfully used in coastal saline soils for cultivation of rice. Neem cake contains the alkaloids nimbin and nimbicidin, which effectively inhibit the nitrification process. This point you have also seen the earlier. Okay. Similarly, this has been used in many types. Okay, this is about the oil cakes. The oil cakes, as I said, that oil cakes, after oil is extracted from oil seeds, the remaining solid portion is dried as cake, which can be used as manure. The oil cakes are of two types. First one is edible oil cake and the second is non-edible oil cakes. We have seen neem seed oil cake. Next one is about karanji oil cake. Here there are two different types. You can note here there are two different types of oil cakes. One is edible and second is non-edible. Edible oil seed cakes can be safely fed to livestock. Okay, for example, groundnut cake, coconut oil cake can be used for feeding livestock, but in this non-edible oil cake we cannot feed them to livestock. For example, castor oil cake, neem oil cake, mahua oil cake. Okay, these both edible and non-edible oil cakes can be used as manures. However, edible oil cakes are fed to cattle and non-edible oil cakes can be used as manures, especially for horticulture crops. The nutrients which are present in these oil cakes after mineralization are made available to crops within 7 to 10 days after application. Okay, after application of these oil cakes to the soil in the field, it will be available. It will turn into available form within 7 to 10 days after application. These oil cakes need to be well powdered before application for even distribution and quicker decomposition. Why we have to make into powder form? for getting quicker decomposition and even distribution in the field. Okay, let's see the nutrient content of these some of the oil cakes. As I haven't mentioned any point here, take a notes, make it 2 columns. One is oil cakes and the nutrient content. In the nutrient content column, make another 3 columns of nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. In the first column it will be oil cakes. Okay, that column will be oil cake. Make a heading of non-edible oil cakes. Non-edible oil cakes. In non-edible oil cakes, the first one is castor cake. This castor cake contains 4.3% of nitrogen, 1.8% of phosphorus and 1.3% of potassium. Okay, in this castor oil cake will contain 4.3% of nitrogen, 1.8% of phosphorus and 1.3% of potassium. Next one is about castor seed cake. This castor seed cake contains 3.9% of nitrogen, 1.8% of phosphorus and 1.6% of potassium. And third is about karanj cake. It is about 3.9% of nitrogen, 0.9% of phosphorus and 1.2% of potassium. Karanj cake contains 3.9% of nitrogen, 0.9% of phosphorus and 1.2% of potassium. Mahua cake contains Mahua. Mahua cake contains 2.5% of nitrogen, 0.8% of phosphorus and 1.2% of potassium. Safflower cake will be containing 4.9% of nitrogen, 1.4% of phosphorus and 1.2% of potassium. These were about the non-edible oil cakes. Let's move on to the edible oil cakes and its nutrient content. First one is coconut oil cake. Coconut oil cake contains 3.0% of nitrogen and 1.9% of phosphorus and 1.8% of potassium. 3% of nitrogen, 1.9% of phosphorus and 1.8% of potassium. Cottonseed contains 6.4% of nitrogen, 2.9% of phosphorus and 2.2% of potassium. Groundnut cake contains 7.3% of nitrogen, 1.5% of phosphorus and 1.3% of potassium. Cottonseed contains groundnut cake contains 7.3% of nitrogen, 1.5% of phosphorus and 1.3% of potassium. Linseed cake contains 4.9% of nitrogen, 1.4% of phosphorus and 1.3% of potassium. Rapeseed cake contains 5.2% of nitrogen, 1.8% of phosphorus and 1.2% of potassium. Safflower cake contains 7.9% of nitrogen, 2.2% of phosphorus and 1.9% of potassium. Sesame cake contains 6.2% of nitrogen, 2.2% of phosphorus and 1.2% of potassium. Sesame cake contains 6.2% of nitrogen, 2% of phosphorus and 1.2% of potassium. This was about oil cakes and its nutrient content, how we can apply and how it will be useful to the crops. Next, moving to fly ash. What is meant by fly ash? From where we can get this? Any idea about this? Yeah. Okay, fly ash. It is a coal combustion residue of thermal power plants, has been regarded as the solid waste of that industry. Okay, as we are having many different types of thermal power plants, there will be more amount of residues from that. The coal combustion, it will be from the coal after usage, it will be the waste will be come out from the industries, that will be known as fly ash. We cannot decompose or dispose of high amount of fly ash from thermal power plants, absorb huge amount of to decompose it, as it needs more amount of water, energy and large land area by ash ponds. Therefore, fly ash management would remain a great concern for this world. Okay. However, several studies propose that Fly ash can be used in a soil ameliorate that may improve physical, chemical, and biological properties of the degraded soils and is a source of readily available plant micro and macronutrients. Okay, as these industries are feeling difficult and trying difficult way to decompose these, at that time they have experimented on this and found that this can be used as soil ameliorate and helps in soil and changing the soil physical and chemical and biological properties in the degraded soils. It will be used in a ready-made available form. Okay, practical value of fly ash in agriculture as an eco-friendly and economic fertilizer or soil amendments can be established after repeated field experiment for each type of soil. We cannot go for direct application. After doing many tests and experiments only, we have to use this fly ash in a fields. Okay, fly ash has a great potentiality in agriculture due to its efficacy. Why it has been more importance? It has been having efficacy in modification of soil health and crop performance, so that it has been having much importance in this agriculture. The high concentration of elements like potassium, sodium, zinc, calcium, magnesium, and iron will be contained in this fly ash increase the yield of many agricultural crops. Okay, but the use of fly ash in agriculture is limited compared to other sector. In agriculture we have to use this in limited portion only, we should not use in excess. This also can be used in many different forms in different industries. Okay, but coming to agriculture, it has limited value. Okay, an exhaustive review of numerous studies of last 4 decades took place in this study, which systematically covers the important scope and apprehension regarding utilization of fly ash in agriculture. As we want to know about any new product, definitely there will be a research will be going on that with different types of project and different types of experiments on different types of crops, so that it has been given the utilization should be under experimented only. This study also identified some areas like soil fertility and its response on cereal crop, cereal, oilseeds, and vegetable crops. Agriculture lime application contributes to global warming, as Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change assumes that all the carbon agriculture lime is finally released as CO2 to the atmosphere. It is expected that use of fly ash instead of lime in agriculture can reducing the carbon emission into the atmosphere and also reduce global warming. See here, this panel IPCC, what is meant by IPCC? Intergovernmental Panel helps assumes that the carbon agriculture we are going to apply lime in some cases whenever needed in this agriculture. At the time of lime application, from the soil it was again converted into carbon dioxide and escape into the atmosphere in the form of carbon. As there is more emissions of this carbon dioxide, it will leads to global warming. To reduce this global warming than the lime application, fly ash will be more useful. Okay, this will reduce the global warming also. This is about the fly ash. Here some points are about fly ash. Disposal of high amount of fly ash from thermal power plants, as I said before that only. Fly ash is a useful organic amendment. Okay, at many places acidic mined lands exhibit reduced biological activity, where acidic mined fields will be exhibit reduced biological activity. In some strip mine sites with pH ranging from 2.6 to 4.7, the pH was found to be range from 5.0 to 7.5 after 10 years of treatment with fly ash. Okay, wherever the pH level is very low, after application this fly ash, it's going to be convert into increase in the pH level and will be maintained like that fly ash, and the credit of vegetation on these sites was rated fair to good. Okay, before application, it means when not applied this fly ash, the site has been given very poor results. After application of this fly ash, it has been rated as a good response. Okay, with the exception of N. Fly ash is rich in phosphorus, potassium, calcium and magnesium. Also contains elements like boron, molybdenum and zinc, which are essential for plant growth and are available to the vegetation raised on soil treated with fly ash. Okay, this fly ash contains, except nitrogen, it contains phosphorus, potassium, calcium and magnesium, and also it also contains boron, molybdenum, zinc, which are essential for plant growth and are available to vegetation raised on soil treated with fly ash. Mixing of potash mobilizing bacteria and phosphorus solubilizing bacteria at the rate of 400 ml per ton increase the availability of P2O5 and KTO within 20 days. What was the beneficial effects of this fly ash? It improves soil texture, reduces bulk density of the soil, improves water holding capacity, it optimizes pH value, it increases soil buffering capacity, improves soil aeration, percolation and water retention in the treated zone, reduces crust formation, provides micronutrients like iron, zinc, cuprum, molybdenum and boron. It also provides macronutrients like potassium, phosphorus, calcium and etc. Okay, these were some of the beneficial effects. It also reduced in the consumption of soil amidorite fertilizers or lime. Okay, whenever we are going to apply this fly ash, it will reduce the cost of fertilizers and lime application in the fields. Fly ash can also be used as insecticidal purpose, and 12 decreases the metal mobility and availability in soil. Okay, this fly ash has numerous advantages if we applied in the field. As I mentioned some points here, you can go through that again. Okay, this is about the fly ash, and now moving to biocompost. What is meant by biocompost? The term biocompost means plant matter that has been decomposed and recycled as a fertilizer or manure. The plant matter only, which is going to be decomposed and applied as in the form of fertilizer or manure. Biocompost is considered as a key ingredient in organic farming. It is very rich in nutrients. Okay, it is a key ingredient in organic farming, biocompost. The process biocomposting is done by simply piling up waste in the field or any outdoor place and then leave it undistributed for a year or more. Okay, the process of collecting the waste and it is piled up. It means as like a heap you are going to keep, and it's going to be preserved for some days, and then we are going to use and leave it is undistributed for a year or more, and then we are going to use it in fields and our organic fields. Biocompost in the ecosystem is very useful for control of soil erosion, wetland construction and as landfill cover. Okay, not only that, modern day biocomposting process has many steps like monitoring of the composting. It is usually done by shredding the plant matter. How it will going to be done? Shredding the plant matter, adding of sufficient water to the maintain the proper moisture level, and then regularly turning the mixture to provide better aeration. Okay, we are going to collect the material which was present, which was fallen off. That will be going to be for that waste we are going to add some amount of water, and then we are going to turn it out within a frequent period of time. Okay, and provides aeration. Addition of worms and fungi helps in process of decomposition. If you add worms and some other different types of fungi for this, it's going to be the process of decomposition is going to be increased. They break up the complex compounds into simpler ones, and during the process lots of heat, carbon dioxide and ammonium is produced. Okay, when it's going to be prepared as a compost form, there will be more amount of heat in that. Addition of worms and fungi helps in process of decomposition. As I said, it will quicker the process. The ammonium is again utilized by the microbes, which are made available to the plants as nitrates and nitrites. Okay, this ammonium is again utilized by the microbes, which are made available to the plants as nitrites and nitrates. It provides not only that, compost can be tilled directly in the soil to boost the level of organic matter and the overall fertility of the soil. Compost that is ready to be used as an additive is dark brown or even black with earthy smell. Okay, the compost, when it has been matured to its level, it turns into dark brown or even black with an earthy smell. Composting can destroy pathogens or unwanted seeds. Unwanted living plants can be discouraged by covering with mulch or compost. Unwanted living plants can be discouraged by covering with mulch or compost. If we see the benefits of biocompost, it have a note on it. Improves its physical structure. It enriches soil with microorganisms. How the biocompost will be going to be used? It improves physical structure of soil. It enriches soil with microorganisms. Microbial activity in worm castings is 10 to 20 times higher than in the soil and organic matter that the worm ingests. Okay, microbial activity in worm casting is 10 to 20 times higher than in the soil and organic matter that the worm ingests. Okay, attracts deep burrowing earthworms already present in the soil. It attracts the deep burrowing earthworms already present in the soil. Improves water holding capacity, enhances germination, plant growth and crop yield. It also improves fruit growth and structure. It enriches soil with microorganisms. Okay, if you see the benefits of the soil, it improves physical structure, enriches soil with microorganisms, microbial activity will be increased 10 to 20 times higher. Then if we see the beneficial benefits to plant growth, it enhances the germination, plant growth, crop yield, and also it improvises the root growth and structure. It enriches soil with microorganisms. If we see the economic benefits of this biocompost, bio-waste conversions reduces waste flow to landfills. Okay, bio-waste conversion reduce the waste flow to landfills. Elimination of bio-waste from the waste stream reduces contamination of other recyclable collected in a single bin. Okay, sorry, elimination of bio-waste from the waste stream reduces contamination of other recyclable collected in a single bin. It creates low skill jobs at rural level. It gives income to the low level people at rural areas. It also having low capital investment and relatively simple technologies make vermicomposting practical for less developed agricultural regions. Okay, it has very less investment to get more profits for the field and also for the person who invested in this. If we see the environmental benefits of this biocompost, it helps to close the metabolic gap through recycling waste on site. Okay, it helps to close the metabolic gap through recycling waste on site. It also has large systems of often use temperature control and mechanical harvesting. However, other equipment is relatively simple and does not wear out quickly. large systems often use temporary control and mechanized harvesting. However, of other equipment is relatively simple and does not wear out quickly. Production reduces greenhouse gas emissions such as methane and nitric oxide. This production enhances the greenhouse gas emission such as methane and nitric oxide. This was about the benefits of biocompost in physical, chemical. Gypsum is also a source of calcium and sulfur. Gypsum from discarded building material and other sources is commonly used in upper southeast as for the Virginia type peanuts. We can use this gypsum as it contains 23% of calcium and 17% of sulfur. Okay. Not only this, compost is a commonly used practice for small acreage organic farms. It is low in nutrient value, but on both conventional or organic farms, it brings in a good source of micronutrients. It also builds soil biological activity and increase cation exchange capacity, so that this also increase cation exchange capacity is the soil particles ability to hold on to the nutrients needed by plants. Okay, compost is sort of like a glue to bind nutrients to the soil. You can say this compost will be act like glue. Why we are going to use these organic amendments to the soil? The main reason to bind the soil particles in the soil, it will be mostly useful. Okay. Among the numerous data on soil test samples, most experts, we are going to use many minerals. Okay. Now I have explained different types of these minerals used in organic farming. There will be numerous tests will be going on there before application of these minerals in the organic farming. Most experts agree cation exchange is the least understood. Okay, any element with a positive charge is called a cation, and for agriculture purpose it refers to the basic cations. Calcium Ca+2 and magnesium, for example, cation has calcium is having Ca+2 and magnesium is having Mg+2, potassium K+1 and sodium Na+1, and the acidic cations hydrogen H+1 and aluminum A+3. The cation exchange capacity refers to the total amount of these positively charged elements that a soil can hold. Okay, this can be hold for different types of elements that present in the soil and binds the soil. When we are going to the soil test, we can come to know there were different types of changes that has been modifying day by day in this organic application of manures in the soil. The cations are held on exchange sites, which are one cation can be exchanged for the same type or a different cation. The cation exchange capacity is expressed in million milli equivalents per 100 grams of soil. Okay, so that the larger this number, the more cations the soil can hold. A clay soil will have larger cation exchange capacity than a sandy soil. Okay, by adding these all contents, it will increase the cation exchange capacity also. Not only this, in the southeast, where there are highly weathered soils, the dominant clay type is kaolinite, and which has very little capacity to hold cations compared to other clays. Okay, with today's volatility in fertilizer cost and other input cost, these may be good options for conventional farmers to consider in the organic farming. Okay, for continuing this organic farming, there are different ways we have seen now. About mineral fertilizers also we have studied. Now I think you had got some idea about some of the minerals that we can use even in organic farming in the transitional period of organic farming. Okay, next moving to bone meal. Bone meal or blood meal, these are the products that come from animals. Okay, animal waste. Bone meal and blood meal enrich the soil naturally in organic gardens. This also natural alternatives to synthetic fertilizers. Bone meal and blood meal add crucial nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen to the soil to help promote healthy plant growth. Okay, for that only we are going to use this bone and blood meal. How it was going to be useful? Let's see. Organic gardening brings benefits to both to us and to the plants too. Okay, to the humans also it will be benefited. In order to achieve the lush productive garden of your dreams, you're likely to have amend the soil to add nutrients. Okay, everybody will be having a dream that to get greenish garden, and we have to maintain that in a good manner and to get good profits with healthy quality and quantity of products that can be produced in the organic forms. Okay, for to fulfill that dreams we are going to use different types of products. Of that, this bone meal and blood meal are two fertilizer options that come from natural sources which enrich the soil with nitrogen and phosphorus. How this bone meal helpful in phosphorus for root development? Let's see. Long before synthetic commercial fertilizers were available, farmers turned to bone meal to enrich soils in need of amendments. Okay. Bone meal is made from steamed and crushed animal bones and is rich in phosphorus, a mineral that plants need for healthy root developments. Phosphorus will be helpful in root development system, so that this bone meal contain more amount of phosphorus, it's going to be used in for healthy root development and faster flower growth. Okay, it also contains calcium and a little bit of nitrogen, both of which are beneficial to plants. Bone meal is taken up by plants slowly over time, so as long it can be used sparingly. Okay, there is a little risk of burning plants with too much of this fertilizer. So whenever we are going to use optimum level of fertilizer or bone meal or anything, any of the organic manure, any of the fertilizer or synthetic fertilizer, if we use in the optimum level, there will be no that much difficulty in the plants, so that we have to use that in optimum levels only. Here also it has been mentioned that if we use in excess amount of bone meal, it will burn the plant, so that we have to use that in a limited portion, so that we can reduce the risk of burning of plants. That makes bone meal an ideal supplement for bulbs also, and roses in particular, which flourish with an extra boost of phosphorus. A little bit goes a long way, so just 1 tablespoon is needed for every 2 square feet. For every 2 square feet, 1 tablespoon of bone meal is necessary. Okay. When planting bulbs in the fall, or ensure that there is sparingly blooms will be spectacular by adding half teaspoon per plant to the bagful soil. Okay, we are talking about the garden land, so that it needs for any bulbs or anything, we have to ensure that only half teaspoon per plant to be backfill the soil. You can also mix bone meal into top 1 to 3 inches of the soil in the sparingly of other plants. For any other plants other than the bulbs, we can use for every 3 inches of this 3 inches of the soil we can apply this bone meal. Some gardeners are concerned about the use of bone meal due to perceived risk of contaminating the soil or plant with proteins from cow bones that cause bovine spongiform, okay, for that better known as mad cow disease. Okay, except say this isn't a problem, but you can always seek out bone meal that isn't made from cows, is not that much suitable. We can go for some other animals which are going to be suitable for this application in the soil. Okay, and this is about the bone meal, how it was going to be useful in different types of soil and for different types of plants. Next, moving to biofertilizers. You are so aware of these biofertilizers. You have been studying in different types of biofertilizers are available. From the starting of agriculture, we are going to say that biofertilizers are important and it helps a lot in agriculture, and even in organic farming it plays an important role, right? Let's see what is meant by biofertilizers. Bio means life, and therefore by definition itself biofertilizers are living organisms that enrich the nutrient quality of the soil. It refers to the use of microbes instead of chemicals to enhance the nutrient of the soil. As a result, it is also less harmful and does not cause any pollution. That is what makes them so important to organic farming, because they are completely environmental friendly. Let's take a look at different microbes that are used as biofertilizers. There are different types of biofertilizers. Before that, biofertilizers increase the nutrients of the host plants when applied to the seeds, plant surface or soil by colonizing the rhizosphere of the soil. Okay, how it's going to be helpful? Biofertilizer increase the nutrients of host plants. Okay, when applied to the seeds or plant surface, it increases the nutrient content and also it colonizes the rhizosphere of the plant. Biofertilizers are most cost effective as compared to chemical fertilizers. There are different types of biofertilizers, of them bacteria, fungi and cyanobacteria. Yes, now moving to see about bacterial biofertilizers. In these bacterial biofertilizers, you may already have studied about the nitrogen fixing nodules on the roots of legumes. Okay, legumes are most important for the nitrogen fixation as these contains legumes. This a great example of biofertilizer. The nodules are formed by association of the bacterium called rhizobium with the roots of these plants. Okay, this association is beneficial and is therefore called symbiotic. It means depending on the host plant on one on each other. The nodules helps in fixing atmospheric nitrogen into organic forms, which can then be used as nutrition by the plants. Adding rhizobium cultures to fields has become a common practice to ensure an adequate amount of nitrogen in the soil. Some other examples of bacteria that act as biofertilizer, it includes Azospirillum and Azotobacterium. Okay, and these are some of the examples, like in bacterial biofertilizers. Some examples are Azospirillum and Azotobacter. These bacteria are free living in the soil. Azotobacter is usually with crops like cotton, wheat, mustard, maize, or some of the important biofertilizers. Okay, now moving to fungal biofertilizers, you can say. Symbiotic association exists between plants and fungi too. These associations are called mycorrhizae. Okay, in the first form, in the bacteria, we have seen the rhizobium. Here we are going to see about mycorrhizae. The fungus in this association absorb phosphorus from the soil and provides it to the plants. Okay, these fungus absorb phosphorus from the soil and provides to the plants. Plants that grow with these associations also show other advantageous characteristics such as, okay, here I have given 7 some of the important features: tolerance to drought condition and salinity, resistant to root-borne pathogens, and overall increase in plant growth and development. Tolerance to drought conditions and salinity, resistant to root-borne pathogens, and an overall increase in plant growth and development. Okay, now moving to not only this, some I have seen about bacteria and fungi. Now we are going to see about cyanobacteria. Make a point about this. These are blue-green bacteria found in water and on land. Where we are going to see this, both on land and aquatic area, on water also. They also help fix atmospheric nitrogen. Some of the examples of atmospheric nitrogen fixation are Oscillatoria, 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 Nostoc and Anabinum. These are the examples of cyanobacteria. These helps to fix atmospheric nitrogen. The symbiotic association between the aquatic fauna, Azella, and Anabina is very important. Repeating, the symbiotic association between aquatic fern, 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 azolla and Anabina is very important for rice fields. In this association, Anabina receives carbon and nitrogen from the plant in exchange for fixed nitrogen. Okay, here Anabina is going to be received carbon and nitrogen from the plant in exchange for fixed nitrogen. This adds organic matter to the soil, enhancing the fertility of the rice fields. Okay, this was about. Nowadays many biofertilizers are commercially available in the market for farmers to buy and use. These not only help replenish the soil nutrients but also reduce the dependency on chemical fertilizer and helps to increase the usage of organic fertilizers. This helps in maintaining the mineral content of the soil and reduce pollution to the great extent. These are the about this biofertilizers. Now moving to some of the traditional practices that come from. Traditional practices are nothing but conventional practices followed in our land. Like organic farming, Indian farmers have relied only on manure and vermicompost to boost soil fertility. Apart from this, not only applying this, but traditional practices of crop rotation, reduced tillage and green composting have also contributed to disease resistance and increased yield. So here some of the traditional practices are crop rotation, reduced tillage and green composting. Okay, these were some topics about off-farm resources that's going to be used in our organic utilization. I hope you have understood this topic. Any doubts regarding this, you can ask and you can clarify the doubts. Okay, thank you, ma'am. And some questions about this today's topic. We are going to see that first question, which of the biofertilizers provide phosphorus to the plants? Which of these biofertilizers provide phosphorus to the plants? Of them, I am mentioning some of them, you can give the correct answer. Oscillatoria, Rhizobium, Nostoc and Mycorrhizae. Which of these biofertilizer provide phosphorus to the plants? Oscillatoria, first option. Second option is Rhizobium. Third option is Nostoc and D. Mycorrhizae. Okay. What are the main sources of biofertilizers? Mention what are the main sources of biofertilizers. Next question, what is meant by fly ash? From where it has been came? Fly ash, and which product is known as fly ash? Okay. Press mud is the waste of which material? Next question, press mud is the waste of which material? Next question, cocoa peat is also known as? Cocoa peat is also known as? Thank you. If there are any doubts regarding this, you can comment in the comment section so that I will clarify your doubts. Thank you.